India that invents.
India Global, we'll get you the top stories from India and the region. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, and for news from rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague Caroline Malone from Washington, D.C. Caroline, good to see you.
Good morning, Shubhendu. It's 9 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. and 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we'll have more from the first test for former President Donald Trump and his support in the Republican Party from the Iowa caucus. First, the headlines.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy addresses world leaders at Davos, says every reduction in pressure on Russia adds years of war, asserts that Putin will not change. Donald Trump secures big win in the first Republican presidential contest in Iowa. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis fight for second place. Vivek Ramaswamy quits U.S. presidential race, endorses Trump.
It's been an incredible experience. The people have been, this is the third time we've won, but this is the biggest win.
India celebrates National Startup Day. Top startups felicitated with national awards. Indian startup ecosystem ranks third in the world. The World Economic Forum's annual meeting for 2024 is underway in Davos. The forum on Tuesday stated that trust and cooperation are a must in a connected yet divided world. It added the most pressing issues before the world are not limited by borders, but cooperation was still possible and very much happening. The official theme of Davos this year is rebuilding trust. And European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen cautioned that for Ukraine to triumph in its war against Russia, the West must continue providing Kiev with both weapons and financial support. She was addressing the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Ukraine can prevail in this war, but we must continue to empower their resistance. Ukrainians need predictable financing throughout 2024 and beyond. They need a sustained supply of weapons to defend Ukraine and regain its rightful territory. They need capabilities to deter future attacks by Russia.
While addressing the World Economic Forum, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said the absence of sanctions on Russian nuclear sector reflects the weakness of the West, and any easing of pressure on Moscow prolongs the duration of the conflict. He added that he had received positive signals on financial support from the European Union and that he also hoped the United States would approve further aid within weeks. Zelenskyy, in his address at the World Economic Forum, asked his international partners to strengthen Ukraine's economy, and in return, Kiev will strengthen their security. Zelenskyy also met NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg in Davos. The duo discussed ways to finance Ukraine's reconstruction plans. The Ukrainian president also held talks with EU chief Ursula von der Leyen and business leaders on the sidelines of the forum. The meetings come 2 days after high-stakes security summit on Ukraine peace formula that was proposed by Zelenskyy. The plan calls for withdrawal of Russian troops and cessation of hostilities. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy also met in Davos on Tuesday. They were joined by U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. The two discussed defense cooperation as the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East seem to dominate talks in Davos this year. And DT India correspondent Alex Cadier is joining us live from Brussels. Alex, take us through the key takeaways of President Zelenskyy's speech at Davos. He continues to rule out any negotiations with Putin.
Well, certainly the first takeaway we can say was the standing ovation he received at the end of his remarks, and that the president of the World Economic Forum, who was stood next to him, turned to him and said, "That never happened here before." And that gives you a sense of the show of support, certainly for those business leaders and political leaders assembled in the room. President Zelenskyy has been spending the last few days in Switzerland and pushing for his peace formula, trying to find a lasting peace for Ukraine, trying to end Russia's invasion of his country. That peace formula does include the removal of all Russian troops from Ukrainian sovereign territory and the protection of the Ukraine's food supplies, energy supplies and other civilian infrastructure. That's part of his plan, and certainly he was trying to drum up support, very crucially, with 82 national security advisors attending that peace conference hosted by Ukraine yesterday and showing their interest, certainly, in his peace formula. So that is the main objective. He, in his speech, said that one man had stolen 13 years of peace, of course, blaming Vladimir Putin directly for the war in his country. He also described Vladimir Putin as a predator because in reference to the fact that the conflict in Ukraine had been frozen for a while, and he said, well, President Putin is a predator who will not content himself with frozen goods, and that is really the message from Zelenskyy. He wrapped up that point saying, look, if you provide us with economic support, if you provide us with military support, we will provide you with security for the future.
Alex, on the one hand, there is Ukraine peace plan talks. On the other, European Commission chief speaks of need for sending more and more weapons to Ukraine. How is the West deliberating over the future of this conflict?
Well, certainly the push from Ursula von der Leyen is for economic support for Ukraine, that €50 billion package of support, which is finding difficulty actually in being approved by all the member states. That is primarily for the running of the Ukrainian state. It's funding to support Ukraine in its day-to-day operations, and as well as military support being sent by the member states. Now, that €50 billion package of civilian measures, as well as some defensive measures as well, is still being negotiated with some difficulty. We know that last December, at the middle of December, the EU leaders were gathered here in Brussels trying to get a deal on that money for Ukraine, and that was blocked by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He said that it was just not right for that money to be sent in that way. Now, we understand the Hungarians are looking forward to a constructive discussion about that money on the 1st of February when the leaders are back here in Brussels to finally agree that money. But clearly the message from EU leaders, from Ursula von der Leyen, is that they will continue to give Ukraine what it needs to defend itself as long as they can.
Alex, thank you for those updates. India's ministers Hardeep Singh Puri and Smriti Irani launched the Women's Leadership Lounge called We Lead at the 2024 World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos. Announcing the move on social media platform X, Minister Puri said to celebrate the emergence of women power as one of the important pivots of India growth story, India moves from women-centered development to women-led development. The lounge will highlight India's journey in women-led development. It will also host insightful sessions with global leaders, politicians, development institutions, industry leaders, think tanks, and media giants. And speaking at the World Economic Forum, Qatar Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani said the US and UK strikes against Yemen's Houthi rebels raise the risk of regional escalation of Israel-Hamas conflict.
This is also will create a high risk of further escalation and further expansion of that. We always prefer diplomacy over any military resolutions, and we believe that we shouldn't just focus on those small conflicts. We should focus on the main conflict in Gaza, and as soon as it's diffused, I believe everything else will be diffused.
Amidst the ongoing West Asia conflict, Israeli military on Tuesday said it killed dozens of Palestinian terrorists in northern Gaza during an operation. Meanwhile, the troops also located approximately 100 rocket set installations and some ready-to-use rockets. Israel has asserted that only military pressure on Hamas will force them to release the hostages. Comments from Defense Minister Yoav Gallant came after Hamas released a new video that purportedly shows dead bodies of 2 Israeli hostages killed in captivity, while Israel's defense minister said Hamas is carrying out a psychological abuse when asked about the fate of hostages held by it. Turkey has said it had destroyed 23 targets in an overnight airstrikes on Kurdish militants in northern Iraq and Syria, a further escalation of conflict south of its border. The attacks were latest by Turkey since 9 Turkish soldiers were killed in clashes with Kurdistan Workers' Party militants in northern Iraq on Friday. According to the Defense Ministry, the new strikes were on targets in northern Syria and Medina, Kara, Hakuk, Kandil regions of northern Iraq. Interior Minister also said social media platform X that counter-terrorism police had detained some 165 people in operations targeting the PKK across 28 Turkish provinces. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps struck spy headquarters of Israel's in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdistan region and Syria with ballistic missiles. The US has condemned the Iranian attacks and said they oppose such reckless missile strikes. As per Iran, these attacks were the revenge for the killings of 3 members of the guards in Syria due to an Israeli airstrike last month. The strikes come after West Asia conflict, primarily between Israel and Hamas, rages on, with Iran's allies from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq and Yemen also joining hands against Israel. Iran has also vowed for more such attacks. And Donald Trump sweeps the first Republican presidential contest in Iowa. Caroline Malone is in Washington, D.C., gets us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Caroline, it seems Trump has cleared his first test.
Absolutely. Well, the former US President Donald Trump has emerged victorious from the Iowa caucuses. Though it was one of the least surprising victories in the history of the Iowa caucuses, Trump registered 30 points over his closest rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And this win set a new record for victory margins in the Iowa Republican caucus. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley came in third, and Vivek Ramaswamy ended his presidential campaign after coming in fourth. Voter turnout was low, though, because of some extreme cold and snowy weather. Well, let's hear more now from Iowa residents and those in particular who are supporting Trump.
I can't divorce myself from Trump. I mean, his qualifications and his performance over the last term that he had, and the persecution that he's put himself through, or they've put him through, is just unreal. 4 years or 6 years, it'd be 8 years ago now when he took over. He made significant changes in what went on. I don't think there's another person running that is strong enough to fight the establishment and to get things done.
Trump. Because I know we both feel the same, and he's done an awesome job in the past, and I know he'll take care of business this time. And he's real important to us, and I think he's going to do an excellent job.
I don't think there's ever been a more important time for President Trump. Our world is going to hell in a handbasket if we don't stop it.
Well, the multi-millionaire former biotech executive Vivek Ramaswamy has dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump after standing at fourth in the Iowa caucus. His entire campaign caught attention, but failed to get enough support. Ramaswamy was one of the surprises of the 2024 Republican race that's been dominated by the former President Trump. Ramaswamy had been a fierce defender of Trump throughout his campaign and has likely secured himself a spot in Republican politics going forward with his hard right stance. Well, all eyes have now turned to New Hampshire, where the next contest in the Republican presidential race is on January 23rd. The third-place finisher in Iowa, Nikki Haley, has touted her showing of supporters, saying that because she surpassed expectations, the Republican presidential contest is now a two-person race going forward. She also told the audiences at her Iowa caucus watch party that she represented the last best hope of stopping the Trump-Biden rematch for president.
I want to congratulate President Trump on his win tonight. We have had an amazing 11 months here in the Hawkeye State. I came to Iowa early and often, and I kept coming back. Even though the cold weather is brutal,
Well, some updates on the weather front now. In the state of Colorado, snowplow machines have been deployed after heavy snowfall filled the streets of that US state. Well, many other states are gripped by snowstorms after an Arctic blast on Monday. And that's reached all the way to the northern states, all the way down to the south to Texas. It also impacted Iowa, where those voters cast ballots for the Republican candidate. Now, these dangerously frigid weather conditions are expected to linger throughout the day, hitting the Midwest hardest and bringing freezing rain across the southern and mid-Atlantic states as well. Well, heavy rain has also buffeted parts of Brazil and killed at least 12 people. The rain flooded streets in the capital city and affected metro lines and people's homes. It brought down trees and caused landslides. Rio's Mayor Eduardo Paes announced a state of emergency, while Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's government has offered federal support. And a volcano has erupted in southwest Iceland for the second time recently, but was then significantly less active from Tuesday, despite signs that the magma is still flowing underground. The Icelandic Meteorological Office has said that although the volcanic activity has eased, the eruption centre is still at a high-risk area and new fissures could open without warning. Officials said that it is difficult to estimate how long this eruption will last, adding that new cracks might appear within it in the next few days. Well, that's it from me here in Washington. Back to you in the studio, Shivendu.
Caroline, thank you for those updates. Have a nice day. And we're heading for a short break, but still to come on DD India Global. A shrine in western Japan installs large decorative masts at its gate to mark end of winters. A look at how Ayodhya is preparing for the grand inauguration of the Ram Temple.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Shifting focus to Indo-Pacific now, a US official in charge of managing unofficial ties with Taiwan expressed disappointment over Nauru's choice to sever ties with Taipei shortly after the elections. The official also cautioned that Beijing's assurances remain frequently unmet. The Pacific, where tiny Nauru is located, has become a source of intense competition for influence between Washington and Beijing.
While the government of Nauru's action is a sovereign decision, it is nonetheless a disappointing one. It is disappointing to see distorted narratives about UN Resolution 2758 being used as a tool to pressure Taiwan, limit its voice on the international stage, and influence its diplomatic relationships. What I will say is the United States has deep confidence in Taiwan's democracy and its democratic process.
Meanwhile, during a Defense Ministry's regular press conference, Taiwan's Defense Ministry said this increased pressure may combine regular combat readiness patrols, cognitive warfare, and grey zone tactics. Taiwan's premier has said that cabinet will resign in accordance with the past constitutional practice before the new parliament meets next month. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party won last week's presidential elections but lost its parliamentary majority. This means that President-elect Lai Ching-te may have to reach out to opposition parties to appoint a premier who will then form a cabinet. North Korean Foreign Minister Ko Son-hui met raising a concern among United States and its allies. The minister made the statement at the onset of a televised meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The Kremlin reported that President Vladimir Putin would meet with both ministers later in the day to discuss the outcomes of the discussions. Some stories from across the world. A crash test dummy has been designed to mimic a hedgehog in a collision with a robot lawnmower, which could help slow the alarming decline of the species. The team say robotic lawn mowers pose a major threat to hedgehogs because they do not detect the small mammals until they've hit them. A shrine in Fukuoka city of western Japan has installed large decorative masks at its gates ahead of Setsuban, the last day of winter on the Japanese traditional calendar. Kushida Shrine began adorning the gates of the giant Otafuku mask 63 years ago. The lucky and plump female face was made with Japanese washi paper on a wooden frame. An exhibition of fine and applied art dedicated to the year the fount of the mind, Makbuli Frajai, has been organized in the exhibition hall of the Union of Artists of Turkmenistan. The exhibition is one of the many events that are being organized throughout the country and abroad in honor of the 300th anniversary of the Great Pot. India is celebrating National Startup Day on January 16th. The Startup India initiative was launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2016 to build a strong ecosystem for nurturing innovation, boosting startups and encouraging investments in the country. Today, the Development for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade felicitated winners of National Startup Awards 2023 and the state's startup ranking. These two are the flagship initiatives under Startup India. From about 400 startups in 2016 to more than 117,000 recognized startups today, the Indian startup ecosystem has grown from strength to strength. The Startup India initiative is also playing an important role in realizing the vision of Viksit Bharat at 2047. India's President Draupadi Murmu is on a visit to northeastern state of Meghalaya today. Through video conferencing, President Murmu inaugurated the developed Rongjiang Maseng Odokore Road and Mairang Ranikodown Ajra Road. She also laid the foundation stone for Shillong Peak Ropeway and tourist accommodation at Kongtong, Malingot and Kudgrim villages. Addressing the event, President Murmu said the state is uniquely blessed by Mother Nature.
This state is indeed uniquely blessed by Mother Nature. I am told that the Moflang Sacred Grove is home to the most celebrated of Meghalaya's Longkingtang or ancient sacred groves. This forest, aged more than 700 years, has attracted many visitors, tourists, and researchers from around the globe. We all should make serious efforts to preserve this kind of forest, which is a treasure house of biodiversity.
And President of India Draupadi Murmu also engaged with members of self-help groups and saw their products displayed in exhibitions. We now turn to some special stories from Ayodhya ahead of the grand opening of the Ram Temple on the 22nd of this month. And here's an exclusive conversation by our correspondent Siddharth Bharadwaj with young Vedic scholars in Ayodhya, where the anticipation for the consecration ceremony is reaching new heights. They share insights into the studies, the excitement building up in the city as it prepares for the historic event on January 22nd. Let's have a glimpse into the spiritual fervour and cultural significance of the momentous occasion.
The city is buzzing with excitement as everyone here is waiting for the big day, which is set to take place on 22nd of January. I have some special guests with me today. क्या नाम है आपका?
दिव्यांशु और मुजारी।
क्या पढ़ते हैं आप?
जी हम लोग इस समय वेद पढ़ रहे हैं और वेद के साथ-साथ आधुनिक विषय का भी अध्ययन कर रहे हैं हम लोग।
कितने खुश हैं 22 तारीख के लिए?
जी बहुत खुश हैं। हमारे आराध्य प्रभु श्री राम जी अपने नए घर में विराजमान होने जा रहे हैं और हम लोग बहुत खुश हैं और संपूर्ण अयोध्या खुश है, संपूर्ण भारत खुश है और हम लोग भी खुश हैं।
हम लोग बहुत खुश हैं। फिर से श्री राम जन्मभूमि पर श्री भगवान का मंदिर बन रहा है और 22 तारीख को जो भगवान का प्राण प्रतिष्ठा मूर्ति को होगा, उस सब को लेके हम लोग बहुत हर्षित हैं और बहुत हर्षोल्लास के साथ प्रसन्न हैं।
All right, as you can see, the excitement right now is in the air, and like I said, everyone is just very excited for 22nd of January, the consecration ceremony. The Vedic rituals will start from today and will go on up to 21st of January, and on 22nd of January, it's Pran Pratishtha, for which everyone is waiting for, not just in India, but in the entire world. This is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for DD India with camera person with Piyush Vardhan Verma.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a visit to southern state of Andhra Pradesh. PM offered prayers at Veerbhadra Temple in Anantapur district of the state. Prime Minister is visiting Lepakshi, which holds a special place in the epic Ramayana, just 6 days before Pran Pratishtha ceremony of Grand Ram Janmabhoomi Mandir in Ayodhya. The highly anticipated 75th Emmy Awards, delayed by the actors and writers strike in the United States, made a dazzling return with expected winners and some heartfelt moments, earning multiple standing ovations. Following their success at the Golden Globes, shows like Succession, The Bear and Beef continued their winning streak, securing major awards at the Emmy stage. The award show brought together stars like Joy Sunday, Ken Jeong and Padma Lakshmi, graced the event in their finest attire, celebrating television's grandest night. And that's all in this edition of DD India Global, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.